Hey, Living Well community. Sarah Harding here, founder of Crunchy Supermom. I am about to bring on another one of our professionals here in the group, Brianne Pugh. She is a RN, she's an RN, and she's a functional nutritionist, and she's just all around awesome, and she knows a lot about inflammation, and so I want to bring her on here. There she is. I'm going to bring her on and work a little bit about some of the research on inflammation, what it is, when is it good, and also we just want to kind of talk about, hey, it works.
Hey,
I was just letting everybody know that we're just about to talk about some of the things that we've seen our clients, our friends, our community do to kind of mitigate inflammation and why it's not always working. So, Brianne, I'm going to let you kind of lead us off with a little bit of inflammation 101, if you don't mind, just to kind of make sure that we're using the right terms for inflammation. So,
great. Hi, everybody. Okay, let's talk about it. Let's get down to it. So I'll try to keep it not super sciencey because no one likes that. So inflammation, everyone understands kind of basic concepts of inflammation. Sometimes inflammation is actually super good for the body. So when you go outside and you're gardening or playing with your kids, or your kids are running around like mine being crazy and they fall and they scrape their knee and it bleeds and it gets red and it's tender, all of those things, and there's pain, whatever, all of those things are signs of inflammation. Those are good signs of inflammation. You want the body to do that. You want it to get red and angry a little bit. It sends lots of different cell messengers to that site. The body says, oh my gosh, we need to heal, we need to repair. And that process starts so fast. So that's good inflammation. Same thing like if you're working out and you pull a muscle and it's deep and it's angry and you know you've done something kind of like not right. That's inflammation deep inside the body. Those are good things. We want the body to heal itself and repair itself and activate itself when it needs to. And then we want to stop. We want to calm down. We want to relax. We want that wound to heal. We want that muscle to feel better. We want to be able to exercise again. We want our kids to know that it's okay to run and jump and play outside. And if they get hurt, their bodies will like heal themselves. So when does inflammation get bad? Inflammation gets bad when the body stops recognizing when to stop, and it continues to be this low, chronic, consistent problem, that naggy joint that just like won't get better and always feels creaky no matter what you do. I say this as I point to my left shoulder that I hurt like 6 years ago. Right? Sarah's probably got some too. She's a mom. She CrossFits. I used to do a ton of CrossFit. Now I do a lot of other things, but to work out some of those kinks that I gave myself when I did tons and tons of it, but I still love it. So anyway, back to like that chronic low-lying inflammation, we want to get rid of it. We want it to stop. We want those cells in our body, they're like signaling messengers to calm down, and sometimes they can't. And that's when it becomes bad. I say bad. I don't really like that term for a lot of different reasons, but it's kind of bad. So what does it mean? It's like our bodies are stuck in this feedback loop, and they can't get out of it. It's kind of like negative self-talk, right? We start saying bad things to ourselves about ourselves. We just keep saying bad things. Our body does that with inflammation. It's just doesn't ever stop. It's always there kind of cooking in the background. And cooking's a good analogy because inflammation is so often associated with heat and just discomfort. So one big example of like a chronic inflammatory response in the body would be like cancer. So if we look at cancer as an example, there's research that shows that our body's producing like excessive free radicals or excessive oxidative stress. Those can contribute to damage at like a genetic level, so damage to our DNA, damage to our mitochondria. Our mitochondria, for those of you that don't know or remember biology from a billion years ago, they're the little energy powerhouses in our body. So they're teeny tiny. There's billions of them. We need them to work and be functional because they do so much for us. So when we have that oxidative stress and that damaged DNA, we get damaged like genetic material or damaged genes. And so we have to find ways to help support our bodies and get out of that feedback loop. With cancer, the inflammation can cause like tumor growth or spreading throughout the body. So those are things we have to consider. So I know Sarah does a ton, and I do a ton as a functional nutritionist. I do a ton of work with different people, and I know Sarah works with a big community of women, including me, on different ways to kind of promote wellness and to decrease the inflammation in the body. So what have you seen people do in your community, Sarah? And is it working all the time?
No, and that's the thing. I like the way that you're describing the inflammation because, what's the very first sign of inflammation that we as moms especially notice and freak out? It's the fever, right? Fever is one of those beneficial inflammatory responses. But then if it becomes that, what is it, chronic fever syndrome, that one where their temperature just like elevates for no known reason, right? So that is a bad sign or unhelpful sign of inflammation. Actually, that's a bad sign all around. But so I see a lot of people, we hear so much about gut health, right? We're like, oh, it's leaky gut. Everything's leaky gut, which is true in a way. But then you kind of have to wonder, is the gut leaky because you have inflammation, or did you have inflammation that caused the leaky gut? It's really hard to know unless you look at your genetics, right? And so that's kind of where in our wellness community, we have so many people doing amazing things for themselves. They're shutting off their Wi-Fi all the time. They're set on the sleep schedule, they're reducing stress, they're switching from CrossFit to yoga, they're doing all these things to try to reduce that inflammation. But I mean, like the autoimmune paleo diet has become so huge and so helpful, but then I feel like everyone plateaus at some point. And so we're all doing the right things, but it's not enough. And part of the reason why it's not enough goes all the way back to these things we're talking about, like our microbiome, which was given to us before we were even like born, inside our mother's wombs, and also our genes. We're hearing a lot more about genes, and I personally don't think that we should have to like go get a genetic test to find out about our genes and whatnot. It's fun, don't get me wrong, I've done it, and it's very, interesting, but it's like another rabbit hole, right? It's going to lead me down the path of what else can I go buy or do that's expensive, and then you have stress, which is just going to further add to the inflammation. So I believe that there has to be a simpler way to deal with the inflammation. The diet, Brienne, like you work in nutrition, I'm sure you put a lot of people on a special diet to help with their symptoms of inflammation. And so what's been your experience with that? Is it really effective?
It can be, and it depends on kind of where they fall on the spectrum. I mean, it definitely can cause and lead to improvements in the body. It can help heal the gut, so it can help work on healing that leaky gut or that intestinal permeability that can increase inflammation in the body. A lot of times people will find out that their bodies don't respond really well to certain foods, and so they know to omit them after that, and they can just say, well, I thought I could eat almonds. For the last billion years, I've been eating almonds and almond milk and almond flour, and come to find out it's actually one of my food triggers, and you don't know until you take it out and put it back in. And so that's where diet definitely is helpful. But there's a lot, still it's not the only solution. It's just one piece of the puzzle.
Right. And I don't think I've ever heard, even in all the wonderful healing stories that I'm sure you've read, like the authors, the people who've created protocols, they're all like, oh, well, I was able to overcome my symptoms, but you don't hear them say, and I never, ever had a flare up again, right? I have yet to meet anyone that said I'm completely perfect now since I did this protocol. Because what's funny is it sometimes transitions into some other food allergy or some other food intolerance or a sensitivity to chemicals. And again, that goes back to our genes. And something that we're learning about, like, what's the antithesis to inflammation? it's like antioxidants, right? And we've been hearing, our body produces antioxidants, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like we can go eat some blueberries and we can drink a little wine and have some dark chocolate and magnesium. Am I missing anything? Oh, coffee. Some of those things that kind of help.
Coffee.
Yeah, coffee. So it brings in what? More antioxidants. And how effective is that?
It really, it's pretty effective. I mean, they help. They're helpful. But it's kind of a one-to-one, right? So you have little free radicals in your body, or oxidative stress, which is kind of a pretty broad term, and it's not just free radicals. There's a lot of things that go into it, but to kind of keep it simple, that's like free radicals or lots of reactive oxygen species is what they called. So things that oxidize, or like I posted something today about a brown apple, and you don't want to be the brown apple. So, or the shrivelly apple. No one wants to be the shriveled up apple, right? They want like the pretty shiny red apple, or green, or whatever, yellow. There's yellow apples. So antioxidants are great for kind of fighting off the reactive oxygen species at like a one-to-one. But we are exposed to so much in our environment, in our food, even when we eat really well, even when we eat mostly organic. But like, today I was outside hanging out, working out a little bit, and we're like a block away from a busy street. So we were getting exposed to all of that particulate matter. And no matter how many blueberries I eat, that's just not gonna get rid of all of those free radicals or oxidative stress that I was exposed to even during my workout this morning.
Right. And then it goes back to that thing where, I'm Crunchy Supermom. That's my brand. That's what I teach on. And I'm all about that. But there comes this time where eating really healthy and worrying about whether it causes you inflammation, or avoiding toxins or detoxing, like these metal detoxes, there comes a point where that trying to do all of those right things becomes stress. And stress is another thing that can trigger inflammation. So I personally believe there has to be an easier way. And I know that it's not going to come in the form of a pharmaceutical medication, because those always have side effects. But I know that there's something out there. There's a way we can deal with this. And Brianne, you and I have been doing some research on such things. And so far, like, what is your take on, basically dealing with the inflammation in a way that's not causing additional stress on people?
So you and I have done a ton of research in the last few weeks, couple months, especially on NRF2 activation. And so NRF2 activation, the NRF and RF, versus like NRF, like in like guns, the NRF pathway. No foam weapons. The NRF2 pathway is a pathway in our body that gets like our entire antioxidant systems flowing and working like they're supposed to, and can shut off that inflammatory response in the body, like in a variety of different ways. It actually works on a lot of different areas, but it can shut off that inflammatory response, and it can help us utilize nutrients better because the inflammation is down. We're able to absorb better with decreased inflammation. Our guts can begin to heal. We can actually utilize those probiotics that we all take and we've all been hearing about so much in the last few years. And yeah, that NRF2 activation really activates your genes on like a whole new level, and fights those free radicals and fights that oxidative stress at like 1,000,000 to 1 versus a 1 to 1.
Right. And so I've shared with some people in my personal community, for the last 4 years, I've had a chronic condition that's associated with inflammation. It's called dysautonomia. And I had one episode where I stayed terrible for 5 months, and I did some stuff to mitigate the inflammation because we had decided it was definitely an inflammation-based condition. And I got well enough to drive again and to get out and do things with my kids, but I was still really sick and still continuing to get worse. And so I did all of the inflammation mitigation, and I plateaued. But in my mind, I was thinking, well, it's a lot better than I used to be. So I'm pretty happy about that. But I always was hoping for some more resolution to that. And so by looking at the Nerve 2 activation and understanding that my body's equipped to kind of scoop out little amounts of oxidative stress or inflammation, like a teaspoon at a time in a way. But my genes and my exposure to toxins and just my general lifestyle, being a military wife, we move a lot and there's a lot of stress. I need a big shovel, right? But my body's equipped with a spoon, or maybe my genes only allow it to be a spoonful at a time. Whatever the case may be, we'll never really know. But I knew I needed a shovel. I need a shovel to scoop out that stress, that inflammation. And so that's what Nerve 2 activation does. It basically it enlarges your teaspoon to be a shovel. And so I personally, in the last 60 days, have eliminated literally all of my symptoms, except I have mild balance issues still. But I always knew that because of that first episode of what happened to me, like I destroyed part of my vestibular nerve or disrupted it or whatever. So I never will be perfectly balanced. It kind of interferes with my ability to do a lot of CrossFit moves, but I still try, especially now that I have all the energy I need. But that Nerve 2 activation took me from that plateau of I'm better, I'm decent, and I could definitely say my diet, my lifestyle, avoiding toxins, all those things definitely improve my wellness, my life, but I could go a little bit better. I could, go a step further. And that's where, I pulled you in to help me research this Nerve 2 activation. And I know there's a lot of our colleagues here in Living Well that are extremely excited about it. So that's why we wanted to come on, just kind of talk about these things and share other ways to deal with inflammation, the good and the bad. No, the bad. The good. The good you need to leave alone. Like, don't treat the fever, right? No treating the fever.
Right. No treating the fever. Let your body heal. But even that, like even just that stressor of exercise can cause a little bit of inflammation in the body, and that's good. But we also want to be able to recover quickly. And my husband's pretty super duper healthy. Little stressed because he's in naturopath school, so he gets that. But right now he's home for the summer and just doing jujitsu and hanging out. And he said since I've been encouraging him to activate his Nerve 2, his recovery is just like on point from jujitsu, which is awesome for him. So he can go more often.
Yeah.
Which is great.
No, that's the truth. And I've been testing the limits with my own personal wellness. Like I don't recommend this to anyone in our community, but I've gone without sleep on purpose a couple of times just to see if I could trigger my symptoms. But, and anyone that has a chronic illness can relate with me, I'm sure, in this. If you wake up one day feeling well, you're terrified that you might go to sleep one day and wake up sick again. I mean, that is probably my worst fear right now. So I was like, I want to be in control if that's going to happen again. So I've been testing it. I ran further than I've ever ran. I've worked out more than, I've been doing these things, going without sleep, kind of trying to stress my body out. And I don't recommend that for anyone in the Living Well community, but I'm just doing it in the name of research. I haven't been able to really trigger my symptoms. And my kids had pneumonia and I had bronchitis. And even with all of that, I didn't even so much as get dizzy once. And that's just unheard of for me in the last 4 years. I mean, being dizzy and actually vomiting like on a almost weekly basis was pretty much normal for me. And I haven't for 2 months now. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I feel like you've cleared up a lot of things for us. I encourage anyone listening, to ask us questions. Tag Brian. Brian, you've said you're completely willing to have discussions with people if they have questions about inflammation. Anything else that you want to just share?
No, just stay present in the Living Well group. If you guys have questions, post them on the board. If you have fun things to share, like community events or even national events. I know someone posted the other day, a friend of mine, Kelly, about this women's camping retreat thing. And she's like, I hope this is okay. Yes, it's totally okay. Like, post them there. If you're not in Living Well, come on over to our group. I'm going to post this on my personal page, and I'll post a link to the group in the comments.
Yeah.
So come on over to the group and just learn more about your body and your mitochondria and just general wellness, like lots of good stuff. And come join us and ask us lots of questions.
Yeah. And we especially love when you bring something that you want us to help you tear apart and see if it's fact or fiction. That's a lot of fun. So anyway, well, Brianne, thanks for coming on, and everyone that was checking us out. Have a great day.
Yeah, bye.